We've got some beautiful chairs for the players. Unfortunately, not for the desk. And they told me to talk about them, but I've never sat in them.
Yeah, we did some playtests, man.
So.
We did some console playtests a little longer ago, a few days ago, making sure that everything was set and
you're
ready.
ruining my bit.
That's what I'm here for.
Okay,
I'm the
damn it.
spoiler.
All right, I have sat in them. They are great.
It's my superhero identity.
They are
I need
fantastic
some dark glasses. Maybe, can I get a cape?
Clark Kent?
We still have no capes.
Yeah, Clark Kent.
Still
Vox
no capes.
becomes Supercaster when he takes those off. And he can get
The
close to the
spoiler.
screen when you guys aren't watching. He can look like this. He doesn't have to need the bifocals there. So how do you feel? How do you feel about that last set first? We'll talk about just wrapping that up, and then we'll head into the current set, which is Splice. And obviously, Ryder.
That was one of the most entertaining sets I think I've had the pleasure to watch. It was really interesting, and what I think Elvenpath said on the interview was very reflective of how the set was. It was a bit of a litmus test in that first game to kind of figure out how everything went. They weren't expecting North America to do, well, what we expect now to be the strong draft of Willow Victor, because we all know how strong that is from the last two sets. They did it anyway. Virtus.pro still pulled out ahead, and then they pulled out the perfect Bright Marsh counter draft, and that kind of really was the rest of the story.
We kind of thought they were going to fall, right? Collapse a little bit under the pressure from Sanguine, but it ends up being a really nice turnaround for Virtus.pro. So that is a vote of confidence from me, and I think we're excited to see how they progress heading into this next part of the tournament. Obviously, they'll be moving on into the second round. It's a best of 3, which means that you've got to win. You've got to win quickly. Fnatic and Kanga now set up to have the winner of that game face off against Virtus.pro in round 3. That is going to be a huge game. You do not want to miss it, but we've still got so much more of the bracket to fill out. 2 more matches today specifically, and let's start talking a little bit about that, Vox, because we've got the North American bottom seed in the PPL. Splyce, still professional players, never been to LAN, most of them. I think all of them actually haven't been to LAN, unless I'm mistaken. And then we've got Team Ryder, all the way from Southeast Asia
with
coming in.
With a full roster, Evan. That's the most shocking thing for me.
Without playing with a coach.
Without playing with a coach or a camera person as well. I mean, that's been one of the stories and one of the plagues of a lot of the Southeast Asian teams for a while.
Hey, Matt's good, okay?
It's an interesting thing to look at, though. You come in without the team that you're expecting, you got to make adjustments on the fly, and they often don't get the chance. That region as a whole doesn't get the chance to represent who they really are. And now we get to see that at last. And to their credit, Ryder have looked really good throughout the online season. They've played 6 matches, as has every PGS team. They've won all 6 of them. They only dropped a single map during that whole time.
I mean, they're clearly dominant, and that's been the story with Team Ryder and Southeast Asia representatives. They're dominant in their region, but have yet to translate that into the international competition. It's a problem that we've seen Kanga face, go up against, and conquer. We've seen Latin America for the longest time face that, and then conquer, getting themselves to the semifinals of the last World Championship earlier in January. And we've seen Brazil come and conquer that with SSG. We'll be starting our day off tomorrow at 11 a.m. with a big matchup you don't want to miss. So can Southeast Asia and Team Ryder do what no team from that region has done before, Vox? Yes or no?
It's a very good question. I think if you're going to do it against any team, then maybe Splyce is the one to do it against. Right. It would be here or would be in this matchup. I don't think that we're going to see them necessarily do it if they get sent to the losers bracket immediately.
Yeah.
But versus, again, the bottom PPL seed from North America, I think they have a decent chance. I think that they can maybe pull out some draft differences we're not expecting. We know that all these regions often have different representations of the kind of drafts, the kind of compositions which they play. One thing which is really interesting from Ryder's online phase, they play a lot of standard comp, double frontline, double DPS. They've played 1 game of triple DPS, but they've also played double support and double DPS. And the only other North American team which has really dabbled with this a bit has been G2, because they can pull out that pocket pip and stick Cutie on it because it's his favorite champion kind of thing.
So is Ryder, you think their flexibility or maybe their consistency in what they like to play going to help them in this set?
I think that it definitely could do. I think that they might be a little bit stumped if, you know, Splyce try and pull out a quad DPS or something like that.
Right.
But I think that their flexibility might just let them do not so much, maybe a little bit more of a wildcard thing for some other North American teams. But, you know, Splyce, they have the option to flex around a little bit. They've liked the triple DPS a little bit more than some other teams. I think that the flexibility that Ryder can maybe provide with that double DPS, double support is going to be critical here, because that could be the flexibility that we need. As we've remarked, Grover back available, we could see the pocket pip come out, and that's actually something which we haven't seen all day yet so far, and that could be very useful at dealing with frontline heavy compositions.
It's a clash of kind of ideologues here across the regions, where you see North America and Southeast Asia. They have their champions they like, and I wonder if Eevee will get brought into the play, because it's definitely characteristic of the Southeast Asian pick ban phase and priority as far as these champions. But you see 2 teams that are both underdogs in their own right. I think we'd be correct in saying, I'll levy this question to you, do you think any game that Splyce or Ryder win in this tournament is a win that people aren't expecting?
I've got to say no to that. I think that people aren't expecting any wins to come out from either of these teams, and as a result, they've got a lot of, really a lack of pressure after this game. You go, okay, well, kind of, the world's eyes aren't on us, so we can kind of just do what we want. Maybe teams will underestimate them. That could be a really big point of contention here. If somebody goes, you know what, it's only the SAA region, they pick Lex in their games online just so they can say that they've beaten a team with Lex. We don't need to worry about them. And then they pull out, you know, like this perfectly drafted composition for a specific map, and they wipe the floor with somebody. That's what I want to see.
Let me ask you this question. What's the weirdest thing you think Southeast Asia is going to pull out today?
Oh god, the weirdest thing, if I had to say anything, it would probably be Moji, and I don't think, no, it doesn't look like Ryder had played the Moji, but I'm pretty sure that the
Lex would be odd.
The Lex would be a little bit odd. We had actually seen that pulled out, I think in North America or Europe, but mostly that was like an end of PPL style pick. But SEA did notably actually have the Moji played at one point. I think that could be the bit of weirdness, but you know what? If anything, I'm wondering if they're going to start bringing out the Dredge. We haven't seen any of that today, and if they want to really throw a bit of a spanner into the works, they could go, all right, you know what, let's...
Did you say spammer? Sorry.
Spanner.
Oh, my bad. Sorry.
I'm not talking about Twitch chat.
No.
Or, thanks to chat, sorry.
You said Dredge. Sorry, my mind got
Absolutely. You know,
else.
it is that Scuttle, which is the loadout in the build which everybody's been talking about for so long, Evan.
Yes,
That's the kind of spam we're going to reveal with Broadside. We're going to throw out and get some extra reload speed and just lock off angles and make sure that nobody can set foot on the point. And honestly, whilst Dredge has less 1v1 potential, I would say, than a champion like Willow with the Nightshade Burst, I think that the area denial that Dredge can provide to objectives is actually equivalent to maybe the Willow, just in terms of raw damage power.
Well, there's a way to avoid moving off the point, maybe in an Nara with a good wall, seedling, and you can misstep it and stay on the side of the point. If Dredge is firing onto an objective, you have to move. You will die if you do not move, and that is the difference, I think, between Willow. All of our blasters are very good at forcing people away from points in space, but Dredge, I think, does it a little bit better to the point where his lethality exceeds that of all the other champions. Doesn't have the flexibility, doesn't have the reactionary damage as Willow does with that burst, but he does definitely bring the heat. Picks and bans getting started soon. Splyce looking for their first trip to an international LAN here today and trying to get their first win, go 1 for 1. That would be a great story for them.
Certainly would be, Evan. And as far as what we've seen in terms of picks and bans so far today, we've actually seen, I think, Torvald banned in every single game of every single set that we've had so far. I know that's only 2, but Torvald has been a really big point of contention for me, so I'm looking to see that continued in terms of consistency. But again, it's the wildcard picks, it's the regional specific specialties, which I'm looking towards. You know, SEA, Ryder as a whole, they're a little bit more flank heavy than some of the other teams and some of the other regions. So again, I might be looking towards the Eevee here. I might be also looking towards maybe a little bit of the Lex, maybe some of the Moji if you're feeling really spicy, maybe even a Mave as well, and that's a champion
to that Eevee, so far. It's actually kind of interesting. We saw Payan use it to great success, and we haven't been able to see Eevee for a long time in Paladins esports. She was really a non-factor all the way after Vegas, and that was in March, I believe. So for the last 6 months, Eevee has not been relevant because of a few desync issues that she's had for players, but those are fixed. The team worked very hard to get those ready for LAN, and so shout outs to everybody behind the scenes on design, behind the scenes in programming, and of course the admin setting up a lot of those playtests to make sure she looks good. How early, and if at all, do you think Eevee will be prioritized here in this set?
You know, I still think Eevee is a little bit of a counter pick. I don't think she's the thing that will be coming out off the bat with the times that we have seen Eevee.
Is it a comfort pick?
It might,
for Southeast Asia.
It might be a comfort pick for Southeast Asia, but again, you know, I'm looking at Ryder's record here. They didn't actually, Ryder was a team that didn't actually play Eevee at all during that online phase.
Wow.
As far as flanks go, they played Androxus 5 times, won with them 5 times. Actually, every flank pick they had has a 100% win rate. It's Androxus, it is Talus, it is Xin that they come out swinging on.
The Xin would be surprising. We have not seen Xin in a long time.
It would be, and it's a little bit of a point of contention right there, because some players say that there's a reason that Xin isn't played a great deal online, because your weapon shots get caught on corners right now.
Sure.
But at the last 2 LANs, we've had consistently reported by players that Xin actually feels
better
on LAN. It feels like you can shoot through windows and your Yomi strike won't get caught in walls, and as a result, folks, it'll be interesting to see if that is actually something which is pulled out. I don't think it'll be a priority. I think there might be a bit of niche counterplay, but I'm not sure there's a reason that you'd want to pick the Xin over the Talus or the Eevee.
It's a good question. Good question. Flank's definitely in priority for Southeast Asia. Not so much in North America. We talked a little bit about long ball, where they like to keep the front lines in the front. They like to keep the damage dealers in the back. Nobody wants
no man's land right in the middle.
Exactly, that little no man's land where champions like Ying, if you're running a support, can do very well in.
Oh, yeah.
Throw the clones, Dimensional Link, she's here, she's there, she's everywhere.
They're not clones, they're illusions.
They're
Evan.
illusions, Evan.
Yeah, absolutely. But no, that's why Ying can really excel, because especially with a champion like Ying having an escape route with Dimensional Link, you can throw an illusion on your damage champions, you can throw an illusion on your front line.
It's
and
nice.
Then you sit in the middle and you can get to wherever you want. Other champions, a little bit less viability there. You might see in days gone by a Furia playing a kind of mid-range role like that as well, because she had a lot of damage to boot, but Furia not as popular now. It is Ying and Maldamba that really take priority and precedent in the draft over everybody else, folks. If one team gets one, you can guarantee the other will have the other. I don't expect to see anything like a Ceres come out of even SEA at this point.
I think it would be a very interesting thing for fans to see a Dredge. I think it would be very, very interesting. It would add a lot to the broadcast. I think it would also start to switch things up. I think it's only a matter of time before Dredge gets picked. And I think it's a bit of an elephant in the room because everyone knows he exists. Everyone's kind of playing this safe game as we finally get into picks and bans here with Splyce having the first ban selection.
That is a very yellow draft.
And pick selection at Splyce. What do you expect?
Splyce from them, I'm going to have to see the Torvald. But actually, their first picks, they might want to look at taking that. So maybe we'll see more of the same. I think reliable bans for a region that you don't know too much about. You're probably looking towards, you know, Khan, Makoa, Willow, things like that, which are typically just very strong, but it's actually the Androxus.
I think you were right on the first call, because I think they're going to let the Torvald go to them if they want for a first pick. I don't think they're going to ban him here. The problem is, what do you give up in a result? There it is, the Inara ban. Now Ryder have to ban the Torvald, otherwise Splyce gets it. What do they decide?
Well, we haven't seen it played so far. I'm wondering if Ryder don't know, because they don't have the opportunity to scrim a lot of these North American teams that often. Ping is a bit of an issue there, folks. But the Torvald, maybe they've done their homework. Maybe it's strong in that region too. Maybe they're just going to see if, like, can we sneak this through as they take Torvald, or we take something else that's strong? But they say no, and with Makoa up for grabs, it's Splyce taking Khan for the first pick.
They get Khan, and they jump out the gate as a very strong lineup with Khan leading the helm. He's got support sustain for himself, for his teammates. He's got damage amp. But then you look at Makoa, and though Khan firing line does counter out that hook for about 4 seconds, which is the duration of the CC immunity it also provides, Makoa consistently can be in the back line and be a danger you have to deal with. Splyce now have to draft against this threat.
And I really like the Makoa. It's a safe champion because Leviathan Makoa having that massive health reset in your ultimate is just, it's buying yourself an extra life. It's Terminus when you can't play Terminus.
That's
and
right.
With a lot more viability, I think, in most situations than Terminus has anyway. Ash coming in as a second pick here. Ryder kind of top loading on frontline right now, not looking to give away anything in terms of their damage strats. This to me actually says that they might be looking for that flank counter pick.
I think so, and I think it's wise to do so here. Get your front lines. You get a Makoa Ash, that's a strong frontline combination. You're not losing the draft at this point. You're sustaining, and you're keeping your biggest threat available, which is your counter pick. The ability to see Splyce's draft and then pick the champion, like we saw Virtus Pro do against Sanguine, which was the Grok, and it worked so well. Here's the Victor early. I like it so far from Ryder.
Honestly, would you expect a Victor Willow here? It is a Ying
picking
up. So Ryder might be looking for maybe a Victor Lian if they need to counterplay Splyce's Willow, if Splyce want to elect to go into that as well. It is a Strix though that Splyce are pulling out. The Ricardo effect is starting to come into play already. And oh my goodness, what will they finish up with? An Eevee.
Wow.
So this is really shocking, but Splyce haven't drafted into a lot of innate anti-heal there. They've got Brandon Fernando, and that's kind of it, Evan.
It does feel like they grab the Eevee to take it away from Ryder, don't you think?
It feels like, yeah, absolutely. The last thing you want to do is play a Strix into Eevee, and we know that especially zero ping Eevee is a scary monster to play up against.
I mean, but you could Willow here. I think you'd be okay.
I think it's into the Strix though, and Fae Flight is just you paint a big old bullseye and you can go shoot me, and yeah, sure, you can actually box out as Willow in Fae Flight pretty well against the Strix if you get that first shot and dead zone off. But if the Strix is hidden, if they ambush you, if they get that first shot to kill, it can be a really bad situation. I think the Lian is more reliable here, and this also means you get to retain that innate Cauterize, which we just haven't seen really anywhere else in the draft so far. That's super important for Ryder taking an edge over Splyce.
I like the Lian for a couple reasons. It does well against the Eevee, because very, very easily can Eevee escape, but with the auto-aim, Lian has a little bit of an advantage in taking her down. It also can duel well with the Strix. Absolutely zero way to avoid an Enlightenment if you're Strix. The only thing is a flashbang and hope that she misses, but it's kind of a big projectile, pretty hard to miss up close.
You know, also one of the interesting things about Lian is that Lian's weapon shots provide kickback. They provide a little bit of a bump to your aim when you get shot. And this is really critical, because if you're trying to scope down and aim a long-distance shot against a Lian, your aim is jumping everywhere as Strix, you're in trouble.
Splyce and Ryder heading off to the races. Who's going to take first place? Will SEA grab their first win ever at LAN, or will Splyce do it first. Let's check it out with our casters, Nick Prettier and William Gormizer, to take us through.
Thank you so much, Evan and Vox. Gormizer, if I told you that we would see more Eevee than Drogos, no Dredge at all, and Bomb King would stay in timeout, what would you say to me?
I would be surprised. Although, with some of the changes, I know a lot of the players, specifically SEA, but a lot of teams love their Eevee. I know you love your
God
Eevee
bless.
as well, so being able to come through, and again,
Brothers
as
of the
Vox had
cloth.
mentioned, 0 ping, she feels fluid AF.
Feeling really, really good. Skin Nerd G here for Vayne. God bless him. He's looking really, really good here. Initial pressure coming out. Fortress Breaker. Ash will lay down the law, but Vayne lining up a couple of good fireballs here. Not electing to peek just yet. Gets his heal, and that's pretty much the gas pedal for him. So much pressure early on for Splyce.
Being able to find some shots and control of the ramp, that's actually kind of surprising. This is where Ryder doesn't want to give up this space, and they're fighting at a very awkward angle because while you're looking down at Vayne and Shadow, over on the side, I just expect Splyce, that Strix, is going to be waiting patiently for one head to stand still for just too long.
I don't want to see this con get too aggressive. I want someone to be parked on the objective basically at all times for Splyce. First blood will come out. Rukata narrowly misses the shot on Makoa here, but no one from Ryder can afford to break this corner, man, because who do they have to put pressure on this sniper? This is going to be a big thorn in their side for the duration of this game.
Being able to find whatever they can. Ricotta just kind of hanging out back. Flare's going to be big on this map, reveals a lot. Dolan just dashes down and gets blown up. Does not have any opportunity to truly live through all of that. And the same thing I think is about to be said to Lillian here.
He's going to check that death recap, see 3600 from the Talon rifle. He's going to get pissed, and then he's going to try and think about what he could do differently, and then there's not much of an answer there for Ryder. It has to come in the fashion of grenades from Victor being dropped into him. I think Leon gets that initial poke, maybe calls out that Strix's poke, and then Ash has to move in, maybe find the pressure, or Victor has to finish the kill from distance. That is the only way I see Ricotta being slowed down whatsoever on Frog Isle.
I mean, Shadow here seems to have no fear. The same thing goes for Vayne. The rest of Splyce, really, they're all getting aggressive. They're all holding their own. The only person I think who is at the bottom of the charts is Moldamba. Otherwise, 4 members of Splyce standing up top. Ice Storm comes out. Shadow is going to be able to make it out, at least for now.
He does get a heal. Beautiful from Aspect, bailing his boys out. And Ryder just gets removed surgically. Beautiful. I mean, look at Splyce right now. Everything is on point. Ryder come out with an assert dominance. They get overpowered off the map. The Immortal prevents the Makoa dive. Gore, what can you improve on for Splyce?
I mean, at this point, it's more what can Ryder do against it. There's not a lot of openings that Splyce are giving them. There's maybe some chances for the Leon the Victor, but they haven't been able to get their ults. Just now they're starting to come online over there for Ryder, but they spend most of their time dead. They've seen this game in black and white. They don't actually have any color.
Oh my goodness, more fireballs, and more fire. Vayne has been relentless with this pressure. It will be the reset now as G-Bunny does go down, but they got some massive cooldowns out from Ryder. The Enlightenment was used, Ancient Rage was used, and Gormizer, this is that area where it's not that big of a deal for Splyce because all they're doing is going home and spending credits and coming back stronger.
Mid-round economy, they get 300 credits per player on the side of Splyce because of that point they captured, so they have just a little bit, plus, I mean, all the kills that they've had, they should have enough to be able to pick up tier 2 items. Otherwise, another tier 1 item is definitely still going to give them an advantage, and now they're just coming back, like you said, stronger, ready to fight, and Ryder just used most of their ults to try and hold off at a minute.
Absolutely. Shadow finding mid-range shots, and when your Eevee is connecting her mid-range shots, she's being her own setup for when she blinks up over the top. The auto-aim is too much from Skrilly. He lives with 1 HP, but Ricotta will change that equation to equal out. 0 1-for-1 trades. Both sides now. Vayne finding pressure. Vayne with a triple kill. Ricotta supplementing plenty of damage through, and it will be a Splyce conversion. A 2-0 lead for the Snakes.
The respawn out of the gate, the first blood that we got to see today, and it was not pretty if you are a Ryder fan. It is not exactly what you want. The control of their ramp immediately went over to Splyce, and this is something at the beginning of a round you can't have because that immediately splits your attention. You forget Strix even exists. You're focused on this Fernando in your face, and that gives Splyce every inch of room they need to be able to play this draft.
I mean, the adjustment I see from Ryder is they're not going to win that battle, I think, against Eevee and Fernando. I think they maybe just hard commit to the right side, sort of blow by G-Bunny. You can hit with Commander's Grab, but there's not a lot that he can do without his ultimate in terms of hard peel. You got to deal with Ricotta. You got to just put the pressure on him, and I think it's Dolan. I think he's the one who has to lead that dive.
It's unfortunate. especially when he's locked over here, but Lillian going to be able to hold the right angle. They actually get a little bit more pressure this time from Ryder, but the question is whether or not they've been pushed out as hard as they were this time around. Now the aggression comes through, Ice Storm dropped, and even though Makoa's not dead yet, they're looking like they're going to make turtle soup.
I mean, you can't sit on your laurels here. You cannot clump up. Vayne is just slaughtering Ryder with fireballs right now. I want to look at the damage charts and see where he's actually able to sit. He's coming up in 4th place, just under a Victor, and we've seen Victor absolutely obliterating people on the damage charts today.
I mean, 50% already on the point. Like you said, everyone's stacking up for Vayne. He has no issue hitting 2-3 people with this fireball, and it's on just a fast enough cooldown that there's been no chance. I mean, Lillian on this Makoa, we've seen him be wildly successful today in the hands of Virtus Pro, but it just does not seem to be anywhere near that kind of repeat performance from Ryder.
Running straight into the anti-heal. Brand applies 75% cauterize there. You could see Ying did pop her ultimate, but just nothing for Makoa. He wasn't able to stand on any of his stubby little turtle legs. More kills for Splice. I just don't see it slowing down for the North American PPL 5th seed.
I mean, G-Bunny is in their face getting kills right now. This is one of the things that Splyce, even though they didn't have the most successful fall split, they have been a team that has been contending with G2. They've been able to at least contend a little bit against Envy, not anywhere near as much as the rest of North America. But Ryder, coming from a region that has been historically just unable to find a win on LAN, they have a lot to put ahead of themselves. And right now, 3-0, the way things are going, this doesn't seem to be their map.
What I really like about Splyce leading up to this event is just their attitude. They had a terrible split. They've had terrible splits. Splyce has not been very successful as an organization in Paladins, but they keep their head up. They don't let it get to them. They keep a high energy, smile on their face, excited to do interviews, bringing energy, being positive, saying that, we are getting better, we're going to make improvements. This is a team that I think it's so good for them to get this first map under their belt in such a dominant fashion.
That was going to be a big assert dominance. 3 kills picked up there for Ryder, but I'm honestly wondering if it's going to be enough. Aspect barely getting out of here alive as of right now, and that at least slows the roll from Splyce. But again, it's very similar to what we saw last round. There's a minute left. You push them back to the base where they can now spend those mid-round credits and then just come back stronger. Also, they wasted some of your ults just getting you to the point where you could find one defense.
That's right. There is an economy in Paladins. There is a way to get ahead of your enemies, but it's not cemented until you actually go home and buy the items. Kills coming through now. Makoa the first to fall. Shadow very healthy. He's got the hot applied to him as well. Heading to the back line now. Trying to track down this Ying, but that's the way it goes, baby. She just cannot be tracked down. Splyce will manage to take the victory here, 4-0. Smiles on the faces across the board. They're feeling good after that victory.
And we have said this kind of in meetings coming up to this, but when you look at this matchup, the way you see it, Splyce, they need the win. They feel confident about it. Going into a LAN, especially after their fall split performance, that's a nice little boost, not necessarily to your ego, but just in your confidence in your team.
Yeah.
Ryder on the other side, they're coming into this, and there's a lot to work on. I've said that Ryder is a completely different SEA team than what we've seen out of the region so far, but there's still a lot of work to be done.
They got a little bit outdrafted there. You could see there was no answer for the sniper. They didn't even try. I would rather see you try and fail than just sort of put your hands up and just against the ropes the whole game. They never really shifted gears, and they never put pressure on Rukata, and he made them all look like Swiss cheese by the end of the match. That was really, really phenomenal from Splyce. That's only game number 1, though. They're going to need one more W if they want to take this one home. Evan and Vox, what'd you think?
Pretty dominant stuff. Actually, not much to really think. I mean, I just saw it was about 7 minutes of domination from Splyce. Congratulations. They get their first win. That's something they've been missing. And I think in the entire organization of Splyce and Paladins, wins are not easy to come by. This time, it's at the hand of Southeast Asia Ryder's team.
It is only a map win, though. We do have the best of 3 set, but I mean,
Are you expecting a lot here? I mean, after that first map, are you expecting... I mean, we had conjecture, but now what are you really thinking?
See, for starters, Frog Isle, it's a very snowbally map. You kind of expect that kind of thing to happen if you get outdrafted, if you get outplayed, if you get outclassed. But the degree to which Ryder were outclassed in that game was just on another level, folks. When we talk about things that you can provide in Paladins, I often talk about positive pressure, where there's damage coming from every direction, you're providing pressure. So you don't get laser focused one at a time by your enemy, but that's what Splyce were able to do. They're able to just pick targets and kill them systematically without any resistance.
That usually works.
The Eevee would die
by the way.
Funnily enough, you tend to win more games if your enemies are dead. And finding out as well, Ricardo on the Strix, MVP for this game, was just unstoppable. Unpressured was the big thing for me. The rest of Ryder was so distracted by Eevee and unable to kill the Eevee that Ricardo was able to free fire that entire game and there was no response. I almost feel like Ryder would have done better if they had just gone, okay, we'll take one backline damage and a flank, and we'll just invest everything into killing the Strix.
100%, and I think it was a nice pickup to put Shadow on a comfort pick. He's really known for this Strix play and known for this sniper play, and that's the thing that, you know, when you get into sets that maybe allow Ricotta and Splyce to be pressured more, you start to worry that they rely too much on the sniper.
Right.
But now, you feel like they're in the driver's seat, and there's no way they're giving it up unless there is a significant, like, I'm talking, you know, Tom Cruise action movie on the freeway takeover of the vehicle. And I just don't know if they're going to be able to pull it off from SEA's perspective.
See, here's another really big thing for me as well, is that Ryder drafted 2 aggro frontlines in that game. Evan, at that point, that's what you're kind of looking to, if you don't draft a flank, take point and go and pressure out the Strix and just make sure that they're not able to free fire on your damage champions, but that didn't happen. Ryder would just corral into a back corner. They couldn't get aggressive. I don't know whether it's if they didn't want to, didn't feel confident enough to, but they couldn't.
It definitely was looking like the inability to successfully manage a tough situation. They tried to go with it. They tried to switch their draft up at the very end because of what happened, and it's weird that you're in the last pick position looking to counter someone, and then they take the thing you're about to counter them with. So you're like, whoa, now let's talk about this, fellas. And you can see there was a bit of conversation towards the end of that set. Hopefully that works out in Ryder's favor. As they head to Bright Marsh now, it is a dangerous map for sure. Another very quick map, potentially, if they don't get it all right here.
This could be a sweeps map, and again, I'm looking at Ryder to see what could they do a little bit differently.
What could they do?
I don't know. They just need to find pressure. Ultimately, I hate to say it, because for me, professional Paladins should never be taken as a series of 1v1s. But I feel like Ryder have to start winning some 1v1s before they can do anything else. I mean, if you got a Victor and a Leon, and you can't outbox the Strix, then there is a real problem. The biggest thing for me, though, that happened that last game, the 2 things, couldn't deal with Eevee. Frontline from Splyce just ran all over Ryder. Ryder need picks which can deal with those threats. So I'm looking towards champions like the Drogos who can just dragon punch somebody. I'm looking towards champions that can maybe apply equivalent flank pressure. They went 5-0 with Androxus during their online phase. I want to see them pull out the Andro. I want to see them pull out something wild that can put some aggressive pressure in a Splyce. You know, maybe stir things up a little bit. Make them double guess themselves.
Sure.
And then maybe you might see an advantage.
You got to say that there is definitely a bit of a, I don't know how you say it, a monkey on the back of this region, right?
Okay.
Where they have to be able to get off and know that, guys, I know we're fighting for the first region win ever in Southeast Asia. I know we're playing against a team that, if we're going to beat, this is the only team really in this kind of tournament that we have a chance to beat. And we're still very, very nervous at our first LAN ever. It's just a lot to be playing off.
It's so much pressure.
And so I don't really hold it against Ryder for not performing at a high level here. I think there are going to be some learning experiences, but what can they do from game 1 to game 2? How can they adjust? I consider Virtus Pro a great team at adjusting mid-game.
Absolutely.
And I think that if Ryder can even adjust game to game and show some improvement, that will be great, as they might be heading into the losers bracket here if Splyce can repeat that 4-0 victory.
Well, so far, let's look at the map bans and the champion bans, excuse me, that have come through so far. It is Androxus Torvald again, that's Splyce doing the homework, and Ryder taking away Makoa and Khan. So first pick on Bright Marsh goes to Inara. That's just standard, but again, here Ryder changed things up. They go, let's take Fernando, let's take Drogo's. 2 synergistic ultimates, you send in the Dragon Punch, and they get out alive. That could be a critical combo, Evan.
It could be, but they leave the Victor open. I'd be surprised if Splyce don't take it, and they don't. Okay, so obviously Victor and Leon still available. Bright Marsh probably favors a little bit of Victor play if you look at just Shrapnel being able to be a successful utilization of that AoE. But I like the way that Ryder are kind of holding that last pick again for their damage slot. They're finding their support, they're getting their secondary tank, and they're saying, all right, let's see what you put out on the table first, Splyce, and we'll try to counter it.
For me, it's got to be hit scan from Ryder, and then I was going to say the Talus might be one that they might want to look towards, but that's drafted away by Splyce. So Splyce running with the Inara, the Cassie, the Ashling, Ying, Talus.
There's the Zen.
The Zen does come through, and that's honestly the only equivalent flank pressure that I'd want to see out of them right now. I don't think that they really have anything else in the tanks.
I think the Zen is a decent pickup here. I'm not worried about Ryder getting a decent draft. I'm worried about how they execute those 1v1s you mentioned, Vox.
Absolutely.
Are going to be so important. You giving this Splyce, you think they're taking it 2-0?
I think that Splyce will take this 2-0. I think that there might be a bit more resistance, though, and that's what I'm hoping to see, is that flicker of life and that flame of hope.
That flicker of life, that flame of hope. Are you a poet?
No,
you didn't even know it?
Do we do some more analogies? Shall I get that's why I've got a laptop on my desk right now, so I'm going into my thesaurus right now. Let's go on to thesaurus.com. Synonyms for fire.
That's right. Caliente.
What do we get? Okay.
If only you had the Southeast Asian, any
Don't
dialect word.
Don't make me go into Welsh here, Evan.
All right, well, it's going to be 2 games potentially that it takes Splyce to move on to the next round. Will Ryder force it to a game 3 here on Brightmarsh? It's Gormizer and Pretty Hair to help us find out.
Big adjustments here in the second game for both squads. We'll have to see if major picks coming through like the Drogos and major picks taking a seat like the Victor end up swinging this one way or the other. The talent selections are being locked in for both squads. Everything fairly standard here. The one that I was most curious about was Zin's. Was he going to go for Yomi or was he going to go for something like a guillotine?
Well, he's picked up that Yomi, and Zen is one of the ones I think that's going to pique everyone's interest because he's kind of fallen off, except for SEA, which for anyone who might not know, it was Zen on Brightmarsh that spawned Country Zen from Evan. So I expect something to come out of this, maybe a good performance, but it might not be the same because Ricotta immediately starts off with first blood.
And a wall goes up almost as if Splyce are just under the assumption that they are already going to win this engagement. A preemptive wall just thrown up to prevent any style of retreat from that angle. Nice stuff from Splyce, playing with confidence, and that's this type of stuff that they will need going forward in this event. But they have to finish business here. So far, so good as the first 2 kills of the game go their way.
I mean, just being able to lock down pretty much everyone from Ryder over on the left-hand side right here in this one building. G-Bunny making sure everyone's attention is over here. No big plays from Drogos either, so 69% to 12. Splyce, like you said, just seem confident in their ability to win. They don't seem to be taking any precautions for a defense. They are just all aggression.
And very deep at the moment is this Drogos player. Punishable situation here for Skrilly. And he's seeing just a little bit of heat put onto him. He's sitting at about a quarter HP, constantly being gunned down. Finally, Ricotta will put the nail in the coffin there, and then frankly, it doesn't surprise me. I mean, he made himself very available to be slain.
Ricotta actually, I think, dashing into the fireball there was not intended for him. Still finds the kill. Ryder having a much better performance. This is one of the regions that has been solid. SEA, CIS, very good on Brightmarsh. That is 81% picked up for Ryder, but they lose control and they lose their grip.
Shadow able to hit the shots that matter down the stretch. Beautiful angle here to play on any frontliners that would be moving their way towards the objective to contest. Catches out the Dragon Punch. This guy is going to run out of fuel. He's not actually making any progress towards a target. That Dragon Punch entirely wasted. However, 30% charge is retained for any Drogos that successfully launches the punch, but does not find a target.
Now on the defense, not a lot in their favor, honestly. 2 minutes, 30 seconds. That's typically when you start seeing some of the ultimates come online. You can see Splyce have already used a few, saving a couple others. But Ryder lagging behind, going to be getting theirs now, but they've been using them very early on in the fights. They've been using them for the first defense, pretty much when Splyce forced them out at about 3/4, almost, I want to say 4/5 of the push through. If Ryder can hold on to those, maybe get a defense earlier, it'd be a lot better for him.
I like the idea, but that is a tough pull to play off. I Am Ray tries to use the Spite to actually cancel out Ash's assert dominance ultimate to crowd control her mid-flight. But even if he did land it, it's only enough to stall the inevitable gore. It's not enough damage to actually take that character out.
Now, all I can see is the meme of all the numbers going through, like what angle, what trajectory, where do I have to fire in order to catch Ash mid-flight?
Oh, no.
Doesn't happen then. I don't think we're going to see it as the kills are just flowing through for Splyce. They seem to have almost less issues than they had on Frog Isle, which is surprising.
Wow, really good tracking out of the gate here from Ricotta. Finding our respawn out of the gate play. Top damage, though, going to Cassie by a small margin over Inara. So Vayne playing very aggressively, as you saw, throwing up what I called preemptive walls and then just getting right back into the fray, sitting at 3-1 here. Good damage coming out of just about everyone on the roster.
Being able to sit up
Except
towards
for
the
Ying,
top.
step it up, girl.
Ying is
4K,
sitting there
what
with
is that crap?
the morale boost too, though. And that's where she's coming into it. I mean, 50,000 healing, about 12,000, almost 13,000 ahead. But it's morale boost too. You're at 80%. It's how often you pop off these ults every single time. This is part of the reason that we saw on Brightmarsh Virtus Pro go for the Grok, was to deal with Ying to make sure she wasn't alive enough to get that charge up.
Ooh, and that's done. Might result in first blood. No, Ricotta manages to just squeak his way out of trouble time and time again. Talus can be difficult to track down. True Power rips through time and space to land on a target. Beautiful counter fear to make sure that that kill is traded out. Shadow manages to keep the gas slammed. G-Bunny moves his way to the back line, and both front lines from Splyce will find a kill. Everyone participating for Splyce, and everyone finding a home for their bullets.
That went from a really good kill onto Ricotta from Ryder to Dolan being the only member of Ryder that was left standing. And now he finally gets taken down. The rest are locked in the base. By the way, this is still a capture point. The rest of Splyce is hanging behind as they are looking at what would seem like a push if you were just watching where they are fighting. Right outside the base of Ryder, they're locked down, they're controlled, they're getting killed left and right. And yeah, they have respawn proximity, but it's not going to help them anywhere near that objective.
And the thing I liked most about that fight is this core principle that I actually heard from a guy named Ozone, and as Splyce capture this, I just want to talk a little bit about that, is when the fight starts, just because you lose one of your teammates doesn't mean that that fight is over. What Splyce did very well there, I feel, was after Ricotta did go in there, he did get his kill. He died very quickly thereafter, but the rest of Splyce was moving and positioning and getting ready to continue taking that fight and continue getting kills, and you saw every single name from Splyce, outside of Aspect, the healer, pop up in that kill feed and land a killing blow there. So that is a team that is playing together. They're playing with a purpose and a plan that wants to be executed, and one that is going to require all 5 members' participation.
And even in moments like this, I mean, you lose your Inara, which is probably one of the bigger backbones of your composition, and the team just shrugs it off. They don't care that they lose Vayne, because Vayne goes down with another kill. He grabs Drogo's, then he dies. The rest of the team just continues their aggression, act like it's still a 5v5, or it's even, because it was. As far as Ryder are concerned, they're having to use their ults. They're getting pushed back. Nothing they've been able to do has been successful so far.
Vayne has walled himself up onto the enemy spawn, just using it as a small vertical mobility option. Inara very rarely will go that route, but Vayne is wanting to just keep the gas slammed on the floor here. The front line from Splyce is 2nd and 3rd place on the damage charts here. Ricotta is just trying to keep up with his frontliners at this point. The payload is inches from conversion. Gormizer, Splyce are inches away from claiming this set.
A full minute left, ults available and coming online for Splyce, and the kills are just running through. They walk it in.
The Ricotta theorem, not a bullet missed there. What a fun player to watch. Splyce are hyped up, they're amped, they're feeling good after that set victory. A tumultuous season for these guys, but they come in here with smiles on their faces, a lot of energy, and they are going to win their first matchup of the HRX placement rounds.
A lot of what players expected, anyone looking at the bracket kind of felt that one going towards Splyce, especially with what they were able to contend during their fall split. But it's here where things start getting tough for both of these teams. I mean, Ryder now do or die. Your back's against the wall, you're in the lower bracket. If you lose here, you lose for SEA as well as just for your team never being able to come back, at least for this bracket, and not being able to go to HRX, where Splyce, you're just going to get tougher and tougher opponents the longer stay up there.
Yeah, definitely some interesting choices in the draft for sure. Zen hasn't been a super successful thing, but it was in Southeast Asia. I think the desk remarked on that. And that's something that, if that's what they come to this land knowing, I'm not going to really fault them for going with what they know. That does conclude this set here. Congratulations to Splyce, as they will claim the victors. We're going to throw it back over the desk. Evan and Vox to break it down.
Thanks, Nick. Thanks, William. Southeast Asia. Not quite.
Evan,
Not quite.
I'm going to be honest with you, that last game felt kind of demoralizing to me rather than anything else. It didn't feel just like Splyce was getting a victory. It felt like Splyce was really just hammering a nail into a coffin at that point.
It's like you didn't need it. You didn't need it that hard.
Really, and there are a few moments which really kind of relate to that. I mean, Ryder looked okay. Splyce get out of control. They stick an Inara on the objective on Bright Marsh. You kind of just win point for a while. And then Ryder took back control really, really well, but Splyce had just better positioning. They had a great initial push. Shadow's Cassie was phenomenal, always in the right place at the right time, with just the right amount of damage, as well as being supplemented so well by a pincer from Ricotta's Talus whenever necessary. But the thing which really started for me to see as the beginning of the end was right at the end of that initial defense, the shoulder bash that came through from Ashe from Splyce, knocking Fernando out of contest range, then using Immortal, wasting an ultimate because they're outside of contest range and can't get back to defend. And I think at that point, that's the point of demoralization for me. And from that point onwards, it just kind of felt like any single member of Splyce could 1v2 any two of Ryder.
It really did, and because of that, you gotta give a vote of confidence, and you gotta say that Ricotta has shown up. The Ricotta theorem proves correct. He's rivaling Pythagoras right now.
As we see Ricardo coming in on this Talus, KDA of 6, 33,000 damage in a very short game, folks. And just able to chew through pretty much anybody they wanted to. Love the use of stuff like the True Power, just to be able to get maybe a finish-off blow, a finishing blow on some critical targets in the back line.
Yeah.
Maybe losing their life in the process, just opening up the door for Splyce to dominate that game.
It was a tough situation, and I think this now heading towards the winner side of the bracket puts Splyce in a pretty good spot. We expected them to beat Ryder. Still, the fact that they got a win, huge. You could see it on their faces. This was a big momentum shift for them in the right direction. Yeah, exactly, relief, because if they lost this, oh boy, what would we be saying? But now, looking at the future, Renegades or Big Egos? That's our next matchup, last matchup of the day. Those two teams have the chance to play Splyce, whichever one ends up winning. And those are both teams that Splyce, I think, has a chance against.
Potentially, but you got to remember that Renegades are playing this LAN, and that's one thing that we need to just mention before that next set comes up. Renegades are playing without Loki. One of the best fraggers in the North American PPL, despite what team they're on and not placing third in there. That could be huge. That might give Splyce the opportunity to take that away. If they do beat out Big Egos, I'm wondering if they'll even get that far. If Big Egos can say, hey, well, let's capitalize on that confusion and let's see how Renegades play with their sub and maybe even manage to take a map or two or the set away from them.
I mean, we know this is a big moment for Splyce, but now with Renegades and Big Egos as our second set of this like double header here, our last set of the day, I'm very, very intrigued as to how these storylines will play out. I do think Renegades without Loki is going to be up for a tall task, against Big Egos, who have some solid players.
They certainly do, and Renegades are playing with the Bonds card. The Bonds card has been a long-time sub from or for Renegades now. They've been a big part of the team for a long time, just never really getting that showtime. So we can expect them to be practiced, expect them to be ready and to be up to date on scrim data and stuff like that. But without the opportunity to play on a LAN stage, folks, I don't know how they're going to really match up to everybody else.
Well, Splyce have their first victory in what feels like forever. Nick and Gormizer are standing by to have a word with the champions.
First of all, congratulations, guys. I'm here with Vayne and Shadow from Splyce, just in their victory against Ryder. How important was this first matchup for you guys to come in and just get this W?
I mean, it was important, as all games are important, but it really gave us a good feel of how the rest of the games were going to feel like in terms of being in the environment, being under the pressure, being under the constraints of having to win. So it kind of gave us a good entry into that sort of scene or scenario, since none of us have played on LAN before. So it was good. It was good.
So question for you, Shadow. Bomb King's in timeout. No Drogos, no Dredge. Saw a little bit of Eevee from you. Were you expecting that coming into this? Were you prepared to play this pick?
The Eevee pick?
Yeah.
Yeah, we were actually practicing Eevee before we came to LAN. It was especially something that I wanted to get, just familiar with. But yeah, we picked it up first match. Did surprisingly well. I was very nervous coming to my first LAN, let me tell you.
Yeah.
But yeah, we were prepared, and it was good.
Awesome.
LAN nerves has always been a thing that we always talk about for teams coming in that are fresh. And at this point, there are not a lot of Paladins teams that actually still get that. Do you think that's going to affect you later on, or do you think having this first game, being able to get your first win out, is going to help you just have that confidence?
Oh yeah, I'll go. I think it's interesting because there's not a lot of nerves. I think it comes down to more of age sort of thing. So Shadow's a lot younger than us, so he's a lot more prone to those nerves, I think. I don't know if the rest of us were as nervous, but I think the going in with the mentality of I might be nervous kind of makes you more nervous. And thinking about, oh no, LAN nerves sort of almost makes it more precedent. So you kind of want to avoid that kind of stuff. So I don't think it'll come up later because the rest of us have kind of gotten past that, and Shadow dominating here will probably get past that as well. So.
Well, yeah, you came in, you got your first win. Congratulations once again, guys, and thank you for the interview.
Thank you.
No worries.